What's up, YouTube? Today we are going to be doing the second part of our Firebase auth video as part of our series on a full stack file explorer / portal in Sveltekit. So in the first video, if you missed it, it'll be linked somewhere here. And in the first video, we set up our authentication. So we used Firebase to set up the ability to use email and password to sign into our app. But the app didn't really handle sign-in state very well yet, and it didn't allow you to sign out. So what we're doing in today's video is we are adding the ability to sign out if a user is signed in, and then adding the portion of the application that will force the user to go back to login if they're not logged in, and we are going to add a little bit of styling to our app to get ready to build the file explorer in the final third part of this video. So just a few quick notes. I've hit 50 subscribers relatively quickly. Thank you so much for the support. I'm glad that these programming videos are helpful for those of you who are watching, and I really appreciate it. It means a lot to me. I also got feedback about my microphone and it being on the desk with my keyboard and catching vibrations. So I do have a new mic setup right here, and it's got some bells and whistles like a pop filter and all that, so the sound quality should be a little better, and I'm trying my best to cut down on that keyboard sound. You still hear it a little bit in the background, but it's much fainter, so you can focus on what I'm saying in the explanations. And then finally, I mentioned this in the video, but I am going to be doing shorter videos and splitting these into more parts, simply because they're easier for me to put out, and I have a baby on the way who's going to be here anytime now, and this will be my second, so my hands are going to be quite full. I'm also writing a book on CSS right now, which I'll talk more about in a future video, so I have a lot going on, so splitting these into parts is just going to be easier, so sorry to do it, but today will be part 2, and then we'll wrap up the application on part 3. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the video. Alright, so let's go ahead and get started, and just as a reminder, this is what we have from our last video. We have just a simple login form that's done in Bootstrap, and if you log into it, which I will do now, you can see it takes us to our index page, and eventually this index page will be replaced with our file explorer. Let's go ahead and start building some components of the file explorer, and I will walk you through it. All right, so first things first, we need our login, or not our login, we need our navbar. So what this navbar is going to allow us to do is it's going to allow us to link to other sites, and it's going to allow us to sign out. So kind of important. So let's go ahead and get started by creating our navbar. So in the components directory, let's make a new directory or folder called layout. And in layout, I'm going to create a new file called navbar.svelte. And I'm going to go ahead and just copy over from what I already have written, all of our markup. And I'm going to go ahead and take this out because I'm going to walk through that. So let's go ahead and save this. And then what we can do pretty simply is go into our routes, layout, and we're going to go ahead and include navbar. So let's do import navbar from lib/components/layout/navbar.svelte, like that. And then down here we can simply say navbar, and when we go back to our site, we can see we have the Bootstrap navbar. It's got home and my website. However, on yours, you're going to want to link to something other than my website. So we'll just call it google.com for now. So real quick, let's just walk through this code. I didn't want to type it all out, but this is essentially just a bootstrap navbar, very simple. I pulled it from their docs, and just for the purposes of this video. And it links to the home page, which is kind of redundant because it's a single page app, but I wanted to show how you can do active links. And then your website. And then what we're gonna do is we are gonna go ahead and set up some conditional logic, which will check if you're currently logged in and show the sign out link. And then furthermore, it'll allow you to click the sign out link and sign out. So first things first, let's go ahead and start with a script tag. And in that script tag, we're going to import a few things. We're going to import goto from app navigation. We're going to import get auth and sign out from Firebase auth. And then we're going to import is logged in from, and actually, you know what, let's hold off on is logged in. We're gonna get to that. But first, let's set up a constant for our auth. So we'll do const auth equals get auth. And then let's set up our logout function. So we'll have a function called logout. And in this function, we will use the signout function from Firebase auth. We'll pass in the auth object. And then then we'll do an empty arrow function. And here we're gonna do local storage dot remove item UID. Because remember, in our first video, we store the user ID in local storage for use later on in the application. And then we're gonna use goto again. So we're gonna go to login. So once they sign out, you want to send them back to login. Finally, let's set up some error handling with a dot catch. And we'll do error as the parameter in our arrow function. Console.error. Alright, so it'll just error to the console if there's a problem. You probably want to set up more mature error handling if you're thinking about doing something like this in production. But for now, this serves our purposes. So we need our sign out link. What we need to do is we need to find a way to track whether or not the user is logged in. And so what we're going to do is we're actually going to go back to our layout. And what we're going to do is we're going to modify some code here, but first we need a store. So we're going to have a value in our store that's a Boolean that says whether or not they're logged in. And if you're not aware, a Boolean is simply just a true false. So under routes, let's go ahead and create a new folder, and we'll call this stores. And in stores, we'll create a new file, and that file will be called auth store, if I can type, .js. And then in auth store, there's not much code that we need to set up. All we need to do is import writable. Sorry, I got distracted by this warning down here. Let me make this go away. Writable from Svelte store, and then set up our writable store values. So this is going to be is logged in, and it's going to be a writable, and we're going to initialize it with a value of false, because by default we don't want them logged in, or our users logged in. And then in layout, what we can do is let's go ahead and import is logged in from stores / auth store. auth store. All right, auth store. And it's throwing an error here. Stores. There we go. And then within auth stores, we have our is logged in. When the user in our on auth state changed, we're going to do is logged in dot update. So we'll use the update function from Svelte, and we're going to do an empty arrow function to update this to true. So if there's a user, and why can't it find stores? One too many dots. There we go. Okay. So, sorry. Directory structure is a little different than in my example that I've already done. All right, so is logged in, update true, and then if they log out, we'll do is logged in dot update, and I'm sure you guessed it, we'll set it to false. All right, so we have our is logged in value, so we can actually go to our navbar, and in our navbar, we're going to need is logged in. So we'll do import is logged in from, we're going to go all the way up to routes / stores / authstore.js and save that. So now what we can do is we can actually do some conditional logic here using the if block from Svelte. So we can do if $ is logged in to make this reactive, and then we'll go ahead and close our if statement like so, and we will go ahead and steal another nav link here and put it in. And what we want to do is we want to change this up a little bit, so we don't need target blank. Our href can just be a slash because we're going to be doing a on-click prevent default. And then we are going to do that on-click prevent default. So on-click pipe prevent default. So that's Svelte syntax for event handling. You can automatically prevent default like that, and we'll do log out. So what is this doing? This is checking if the user is logged in, show a sign out link, and actually let's make it say sign out instead of my website. All right, so there you go. You have a nav link that'll show up that says sign out, that'll kick off our log out. So let's go ahead and take a look. So as you can see, if we go to login, oh, something's wrong. One moment. Error when evaluating SSR. Writable is not a function. Let's try and restart this and refresh. I'm still getting writable is not a function. What's the deal here? I misspelled writable. Sorry about that. There we go. Okay. So now if we refresh, we see login, sign out. Sign out goes away because we're not logged in. So we can refresh. You see we're not logged in. And we will log back in. Then we can see our nav bar has home, website, and sign out. You click sign out and it's gone. All right, so we will be doing some more styling. As you can see, it's not going to be full width unless you want to make it full width. It's totally up to you there. But let's go ahead and add our fancy little header here. So let's go back, and this is actually quite easy because this is just styling. So let's go ahead and, for the most part, it's just styling. And in layout, let's create a new file, and we will call this header.svelte. And you can go ahead and skip ahead in the video if you're not interested in this. This is strictly styling. But we're going to start with a script. And all it's going to have in it is export let text, which is how we set up our props in Svelte. And it's throwing a warning because we're not using text yet, but we will. So this is going to be div with a class of header. And in header, we're going to have an h1 of text. So now that's being used. And then let's go ahead and set up some styling. So normally I would just copy and paste this in, but I have been actually working on a book on CSS. So I'm going to go ahead and walk through this real fast just for fun. Again, if you're not interested in styling or CSS, you can go ahead and skip this. But in our header class, we're going to set a height of 150 pixels. Kind of looks good on both desktop and mobile. A width of 100%. A display of flex, because I want to align items in the center. So that's an easy way to vertically and horizontally align the header that's going to be in there. And then I am going to copy this in because this is a lot of text right here. And admittedly, I did not write this. So this is our background image gradient to create this effect. Now, if you're interested in how I got this beautiful gradient, check out this article from Josh W. Komu. I believe I'm saying that right, probably not. And he has this awesome article on his website about gradients, and he actually created a tool to generate beautiful HSL gradients, and I will link that in the description below. But anyway, moving on. Right now we can see there's nothing here in our copy. On my demo we have our copy. So let's go ahead and finish up our styling by styling the, not a dot, h1 in the header. We're going to do a text align center, and that's overkill, but I want to make sure that everything is centered appropriately with the 100%. Font family. I use Firebase new from Google Fonts. I recently saw an article about Google Fonts that it may be in violation of GDPR, so maybe don't do what I'm doing here and find a different way to include some fonts. I can do like a little font tutorial for the web to show you all the different ways you can include fonts. But to get that font, simply go to Google Fonts and it will give you a, you can search that and add it to your style sheet, and then you're going to go ahead and copy the link for it into your head in the app.html here. So I have Firebase new and Open Sans available to me. And that's all there is to it. Let's go into layout because I want this on every page, and we will do import, and we'll just copy down that previous line from header svelte. We will call this header, and we are going to go ahead and put in our header here. So we'll do header text equals welcome to the file portal. And actually I want that to be self-terminating, so we'll do that and go back to our layout, and you can see we have our gradient header, and it says welcome to file portal in Comic Sans. What's the deal with that? Well, if you go ahead and refresh, it'll show up. It's simply just an issue with loading Google Fonts. So you can notice some differences. I went with like a width on my body, so let's go ahead and get that included as well. So if we go back to our layout, I'm going to go ahead and copy in a style tag here, and we can go over what it's doing. So real quick, let's walk through this. You can use global from Svelte to set global styling in the style tag. So in our layout, I set the font family of everything to Open Sans, other than obviously our header. I set our body width to 75% and center it with 0 auto. I set the background color to something a little off-white, and then I give it that border that we see. So that is this border. I was just playing around with the border. It's not always necessary. I just thought it was a neat look. But this is clean too. So, I mean, you've got a lot of options here. This is totally up to you. And then I do use a media query just to set the width to 100% on mobile. So I should have mentioned earlier, this is going to be fully mobile responsive. So no issues there. Let's go ahead and save. If we go back to our localhost, now it looks exactly like our little demo here. So let's log in. And unfortunately, it still just says welcome to Sveltekit. So we need our actual file explorer. In this video, we covered that signout function, and we did a little bit of styling. I'm actually going to be doing shorter videos because they're easier for me to edit. They're quicker for me to put out. I don't have to go as long in between videos, and I have a baby on the way any day now. So I'm actually going to be a little more busy. As I mentioned, I'm also writing a book. So these videos are going to be a little shorter, a little easier to digest. But in our next video, we're going to go ahead and actually add our storage browser or our file browser, and we will be learning how to use storage from Firebase in the application. So stay tuned for that. Thanks for watching. And again, if you like this content, feel free to like and subscribe so you can see more. Or if you didn't like this content or you have feedback on how you might have coded this differently, go ahead and leave me a comment below, and I'll be happy to join the discussion. Until next time, cheers.